The car was found on a dirt road in the Sierra Nevada mountains. Inside, maps untouched, food wrappers, keys in the ignition. The snow around it, undisturbed. 5 young men went in, only 4 were ever found, and the last one, to this day, no one knows where he went or what he was running from. This wasn't a ghost story, it wasn't an accident, it was a slow motion horror that played out in the woods. February 24th, 1978. 5 friends went to Yuba City, California, piled into a turquoise and white Mercury Montego. They were headed to Chico State to watch a basketball game. They were known as the Boys by their families, young men in their 20s and 30s with mild development disabilities and mental health conditions. Their lives were stable, structured, gentle. Bill Sterling, 29, quiet, thoughtful. Jake Madruga, 30, Army vet, protective. Ted Wheeler, 32, cheerful, friendly, loved basketball. Jake Hewitt, 24, shy, close with Ted. Gary Mateus, 25, had schizophrenia, managed with medication, charismatic, well-liked. They never missed practices, never missed games. They were due to play in a Special Olympics basketball tournament the next morning. They promised their parents they'd be home that night, but they never came back. The basketball game ended just before 10 p.m. Witnesses saw 5 men laughing, piling into the Montego and heading south. They should have taken Highway 99, the direct route home. Instead, they turned east, into the mountains. It made no sense. The road narrowed, pavement became gravel, forest rose on both sides like closing jaws. The elevation climbed, snow thickened on the roadside. They passed towns they didn't know or didn't belong in. At 5:45 a.m. the next day, a Forest Service ranger found the Mercury, abandoned, parked neatly in the middle of the road 70 miles from Chico. No damage, no signs of struggle, keys still in the ignition, window down, gas tank a quarter full. Inside the car were food wrappers from a convenience store. One item purchased, a cherry pie. None of the boys had eaten it. Maps of California were untouched in the glove box. Then came the footprints. Deputies followed a trail in the snow leading north, towards the wilderness of Plumas National Forest. They ended abruptly in white drifts. The snow swallowed them. Temperatures dropped below freezing that night. The boys were in street clothes, no jackets, no flashlights, no cold weather gear. And then, nothing. For months. Ted's mother said, "Something scared them off that road. Something made them run." But no one could explain what. For nearly 4 months, the forest kept its secrets. Rescue crews combed the mountains, dogs, helicopters, searchlines, finding nothing until the 4 came. June the 4th, 1978, a group of motorcyclists cut through a remote surface road near a defunct forestry trailer in the deep woods, 20 miles from the car. One rider smelled something foul, followed it to the cabin. What he saw inside stopped him cold. On the bed, wrapped in sheets pulled tight over his head like a shroud, was Ted Wheeler. His shoes were missing, feet severely frostbitten. His beard had grown inches longer than his family had ever seen. He'd lost between 80 to 100 pounds. Next to him, a locker filled with rations, enough for 5 men to survive for months. Unopened, a butane tank, never used. Matches, still boxed. He had starved to death, surrounded by supplies. A journal lay on the table, Scraps with crude notation suggested Ted had lived 8 to 13 weeks after the disappearance, long enough to suffer, long enough to wonder where the others went, long enough to give up hope. The next discovery came a few days later, 2 miles back along a snow-covered path. Searchers found Jake Madruga's body, his keys in his pocket, shoes missing. Nearby, hidden in dense brush, was Bill Sterling, just bones. Jake Hewitt was found days after that, his spine scattered near a stream, just off the trail. None of them had tried to return to the car, none of them left a message, and no one knows why they split. And Gary Mateus, he was never found. His shoes were discovered inside the trailer, by Ted's body, carefully placed under the bed. Gary had bigger feet than Ted. It meant Ted was wearing Gary's shoes when he died, which meant Gary had walked barefoot into snow and vanished. There were no signs of struggle, no animals, no injuries, only absence, only questions. The trail ended at a trailer in the woods, but the story didn't end with the bodies. Not really. Why did they go up to the mountain in the first place? They had plans the next day. They were excited, focused. It made no sense to drive 70 miles in the wrong direction, into snow, into elevation. And why didn't they return to the car? It was intact. Warmth, shelter, fuel. Yet they left it, walked into the night. And then, the trailer. Someone had broken a window to get in. The cabin had heat, food, clothes and matches, but they never used any of it. Ted had laid down and just waited to die. Was it fear? Was someone else there? One theory surfaced. Gary Mateus, the only one never found, may have led them, confused, possibly in a schizophrenic episode, into the woods. His shoes in the trailer suggested he cared for Ted. Had he left to find help? Had he gotten lost? Or did something else happen in those woods? Locals mentioned stories, old cabins, long abandoned, cult rumours, strange lights seen in the hills, but nothing concrete, no signs of violence, no suicide notes, no last words. Gary's body has never been recovered. Some think he's still out there, others think he made it out and never wanted to be found. The Yuba County Sheriff said one thing before retiring: "I've worked murders, suicides, kidnappings, but nothing hurts me more like those 5 boys." Their families never got answers, just fragments. Jake Madruga's mother said her son wouldn't have left the car willingly. He hated the cold, hated the woods. Ted Wheeler's sister said he wouldn't go anywhere without his special watch. It was still missing, still is. Bill Sterling's father refused to believe the story ended in starvation. He insisted someone lured them out there, someone scared them, or worse, followed them. Gary Mateus's family, well, they've waited years, checked mental hospitals, reached out to shelters. Nothing. No confirmed sightings, no remains. His social security number was never used again. He simply dissolved into the forest. The Yuba 5 are still spoken of in Northern California as a cautionary tale, as a tragedy, as a mystery that defies logic. Over 45 years later, questions remain. Why drive up to a snowy mountain in the middle of the night? Why abandon safety? Why split up? And why did Ted wait to die instead of lighting a fire? No one knows. Just a car with food inside, a trail of footprints in the snow, a trailer full of supplies, and silence, and one man still missing. There are disappearances, and then there's this. A car left running, a trail that ends in snow, A group of young men who should have made it home, who were hours from safety, minutes from food, yet vanished into the cold like ghosts. They weren't hikers, they weren't thrill seekers, they were just boys, headed home after a game, and something pulled them off course, something made them run. So when you pass a trailhead in the forest, or you see a narrow dirt road winding into the hills, ask yourself, what's waiting at the end, and what would make you walk towards it? If this story haunted you, like it haunts investigators to this day, hit like, subscribe, and ring that bell. The forest doesn't forget, and the next disappearance is even stranger. They vanished into the trees. No bodies, no blood, no footprints. Over 5 years, 5 people disappeared inside a patch of Vermont wilderness, each on different days, different paths, never to be seen again. They were alone, until they weren't. The locals call it the Bennington Triangle, but what do you call a place that eats people? 1945, Bennington, Vermont. The woods around Glastonbury Mountain were thick, silent, beautiful and wrong. Hunters spoke of a strange echo patterns, compass needles drifted, animals avoided it. Old legends told of a cursed stone, of a shadow that moved without light. But none of that stopped hikers. It was just a mountain, just trees, just air, right? October 1945, Medai Rivers 74 was a local guide. Tough, wiry, knew the trails better than anyone. He led 4 hunters through the hills north of Glastonbury. He hiked ahead to prep the next campsite. It was never seen again. The others found nothing, no footprints, no gear, just silence. They searched, called his name, but the woods swallowed the echo, the first to disappear, but not the last. A year passed, no sign of Medai Rivers. Locals moved on, but the mountain wasn't done. December 1st, 1946, Paula Weldon, 18 years old, a sophomore at Bennington College, put on her red coat and left campus for a short walk along the long trail. She was seen by several people along the way. A gas station attendant, a couple on the trail. One hiker said she looked distracted. She never came back. Search parties flooded the mountain. Soldiers, students, dogs, planes. FBI was called in. Her father demanded national attention. But nothing. No scarf, no footprints, not even a snapped branch. Gone. And then came the others. 1949, James Tapford, a war vet returning to Bennington Soldiers' Home by bus. He boarded in St. Albans. Passengers confirmed he was seen mid-ride. But when the bus arrived, his seat was empty, his luggage still overhead, his bus timetable still folded in his coat pocket. He vanished between stops, on a moving vehicle, surrounded by people. October the 12th, 1950, 8-year-old Paul Jepson vanished while riding in a truck with his mother. She left him inside briefly to feed pigs near a dump site. When she came back, the door was open. Paul was gone. Bloodhounds traced his scent to a trail, then nothing. She later said he insisted on wearing his red jacket, like Paula. She felt unease before they even left the house. The woods were eating people, but it saved its most disturbing case for last. The pattern was inescapable. Old man, young woman, war vet, a child. Different ages, different backgrounds, but one thing in common. They all vanished within a 10-mile radius of Glastonbury Mountain. And then came Frida Langer, October 28, 1950, just 16 days after Paul Jepson. Frida, 53, was camping near Somerset Reservoir with her cousin. She slipped while crossing a stream and went back to change clothes. The camp was only 300 yards away. She never made it. Search efforts began immediately. Hundreds combed the area on foot and horseback. Planes scanned the woods. Divers were brought in. But again, no trace. Not a shoe, not a button, nothing. And then, 7 months later, May 1951, her body was found. In an open clearing that had been searched before, badly decomposed, cause of death unknown. No clues, no trauma, just bones, just clothing. It was the only body recovered out of the 5 disappearances, and it gave no answers, only new questions. The mountain didn't explain itself. Locals spoke in whispers. They said that the Abenaki tribes avoided the area, not out of respect, but fear. They spoke of a man-eating stone somewhere deep in the trees, a place where things stepped wrong and vanished. Folk story merged with fact. Hunters began to disappear less. The area's population declined. Trails fell out of use. The forest didn't feel wild. It felt watching. Like something was there. Not a beast, not a ghost, just absence. That thing which stares back and doesn't blink. People stopped walking that side of the long trail because now it had a name. The name came from folklore researchers. They called it the Bennington Triangle, a play on the Bermuda Triangle because it fits too well. Unexplainable vanishings, no remains, no violence, just people walking into the woods and never returning. There were theories, many. One, a serial killer preying on the isolated. But how could one man pull victims from buses, campsites, trails, with 0 witnesses and no struggle? 2. A bear or a mountain lion. But predators leave remains, scratches, drag trails. There were none. 3. Environmental, natural sinkholes, sudden rockfalls, weather shifts. Possible, but 5 people in 5 years? Then came the stranger ones, magnetic anomalies. Locals claimed the compasses failed near Glastonbury. Birds flew wrong. Some said the mountain itself was cursed, geologically unstable in a way science hadn't mapped. Others swore they saw lights in the trees or heard voices in the fog. One survivor, a hiker in 1952, reported seeing a figure watching him from between the trees. He said it was tall, too tall, and when he turned, it was suddenly on the other side of the trail, without moving. He ran all the way back to the road, dropped his gear, and never returned. He never gave his name. The forest gave no final reveal, no shadowy culprit, no supernatural confession, just a number, 5, and a silence that never left. Today, Glastonbury is a ghost town. The old logging roads are overgrown, buildings have collapsed, nature had swallowed the scars, but the stories remain. Locals still tell their kids to stay away from the long trail. Hunters won't camp near the summit, and hikers, those who don't know the history, often report strange sensations, lost time, paths that loop when they shouldn't. One group in 1993 swore their compass spun in circles for 30 minutes. Another claimed to hear a woman crying, but when they followed the sound, it kept moving, further and further from the trail. They left before sundown. No more disappearances have been recorded since the 1950s, but maybe people just stopped reporting them. Maybe the forest grew more careful, or maybe the stories were warnings all along. Don't hike alone, don't leave the path, and if the trail starts to feel different, like the trees are listening, leave. Paula Weldon's red coat was never found. James Thetford's luggage is still in storage. Paul Jepson's mother never forgave herself for turning her back, and Frida Langer's bones rest in a grave no one visits. The Bennington Triangle doesn't howl, it doesn't attack, it simply takes. There's something uniquely terrifying about the disappearances. No blood, no answer, no goodbye. Just a space where someone should be. The Bennington Triangle isn't famous, there's no horror movie about it. But in those woods, 5 people stepped away from the world and never returned. Not all ghosts wear chains, some are names on cold case files, some are echoes in the trees. If this story unsettled you, if it made you think twice about wandering off the trail, hit like, subscribe and ring that bell, because in the next story, a whole family walks into the forest and none of them come back. They left in the middle of the night. A couple, 2 children, smiling, bags packed. A man had promised them jobs in the woods. They got in his car and no one ever saw them again. No screams, no struggle, just gone. This wasn't a random disappearance, this was a trap, and the forest was the perfect place to bury the truth. August 1st, 1989, Prince George, British Columbia. Ronald Jack, 26, and his wife Doreen, 26, were struggling to get by. 2 children, Russell 9 and Ryan 4. A small home, long days. Then came the opportunity. A man met Ronald at a local pub, said he had a logging job, offered housing, good pay, a place for the kids to stay. He said they could start immediately. Ronald called his mother that night, said they were heading out early, around 1 AM. He'd send her a forwarding address. He never called again. The next day, the Jacks were gone. The house was empty, beds made, dishes clean. No signs of struggle. Neighbours said they left quietly. No bags, no farewells. A family, erased in a single ride. At first, no one panicked. The Jacks had always been quiet. Maybe they started a new job. Maybe they were settling in. But after 3 days, no word, no address, no call, no update. Ronald's mother called the police. An officer visited the house. Everything was in order. 2 in order. 2 toothbrushes left behind, the children's favourite toys, untouched. Half a carton of milk in the fridge, still fresh. It didn't look like a move, it looked like they were coming back. Ronald's mother remembered something. During the call, Ronald sounded off, quiet, tense. He said the job was somewhere near the woods, but didn't give a location. When she asked for the man's name, he paused, said he'd forgotten. Investigators began canvassing bars, trying to find the man who made the offer. No one knew him. Descriptions varied. Some say he was a Native American, others said Eastern European. Tall, short, friendly, forgettable. No one could agree, because no one really saw him. The forest around Prince George is vast, thousands of square kilometres of logging roads, rivers, and deep untracked wilderness, a perfect place to disappear. The RCMP launched an investigation. They interviewed every logging company in the region, dozens of them. Not one had hired Ronald Jack. No crews have reported a new family arriving. They scoured records, permits, pay slips. Nothing. Police helicopters flew grid patterns over back roads and cut lines. Mounties on horseback traced ancient game trails. Divers checked lakes, rivers, logging ponds. Every mile of wilderness they crossed brought them no closer. No vehicle, no tracks, no scent. It was as if the Jacks had been taken by air and dropped into a void. Then came the rumour. A witness claimed to see Ronald at a rest stop days after the disappearance. He looked pale, disorientated, was pacing near a truck. The witness blinked and he was gone. Police investigated. No security footage, no receipts, no proof, but it was the only lead they had. Another witness, a trucker, said he passed a car matching the Jack's make, being driven erratically down a logging road, lights off. He never followed it. The road dead-ended into 80 miles of untracked forest. A few began to whisper what others feared, that the job was a lie, that the man who offered it had planned this, that the family had been taken somewhere remote and silenced. But for what? There was no ransom, no note, no message. If this was about violence, it was violence for its own sake. And then, nothing. Weeks turned to months. The case went cold. No sightings, no bodies, no evidence. Just a family of 4 evaporated from reality. 2 years passed, then a name surfaced. Felix N., a drifter, part-time logger, known in nearby indigenous communities. He matched several witness descriptions. Tall, soft-spoken, lived out of his truck. Rumours tied him to the Jacks. Police brought him in, questioned him. He denied everything. They found no evidence, no prints, no belongings. He walked free. But the rumours didn't stop. Locals said he had a temper, that he'd once taken a woman deep into the woods, and she never spoke again. Another said he bragged once, drunk at a bar, about knowing how to make people vanish up north. Then he disappeared too, vanished from town, left behind a rusted trailer and 2 dead dogs. Some say he fled, some say something found him. Back in Prince George, the Jack home was sold, the children's toys packed in boxes, the photos kept by family, but nothing changed the silence. No one ever called, no one ever wrote, no one ever claimed them. The RCMP marked the case unsolved, but privately, one officer wrote in a report, "They didn't run, they didn't vanish, they were taken." The Jack family never came home. No grave, no remains, no closure. They exist now only in photographs, smiling in birthday hats, hugging at Christmas, standing beside a car that was never found. Ronald's mother kept calling the RCMP for years, asking if they'd check the lakes again, begging them to reopen the file. Doreen's sister left the porch light on every night until her own death in 2006. Hope turned to routine. Routine turned to ritual. In British Columbia, the woods are ancient. They don't give up secrets easily. Hundreds of kilometers of wilderness stretch beyond Prince George. It's where loggers disappear, where backpackers get lost and are never found. But the Jacks weren't hikers. They didn't stray. They were taken. The most terrifying part, someone lured them with kindness, promised them work, security, a future, and that person is still out there. People still talk about it in hushed voices. The man with the offer, the job that didn't exist, the family that vanished like smoke. Because up north, the forest listens, but it never speaks. It's one thing to disappear alone, but a family, a father, a mother, and 2 small boys? That's not misadventure, that's not accident, that's intent. Someone watched the Jacks, spoke kindly, gained their trust, then led them into the dark. And in the vast wilderness of British Columbia, there's more than enough room to bury the truth. If this story left a chill in your spine, if you believe this family deserves justice, hit like, subscribe, and ring that bell, because these woods, they're still out there, and not everything in them wants you to leave.